Please be seated. I would never begin a sermon with a horrible joke. Never. And there's one that is going around most churches across the country today, based on the gospel, which is, what did Peter do to tick off Jesus to heal his mother-in-law? I would never do that, though. What strikes me, one of the things that's so typical of Mark is it's just these little bits of news that you get. You don't get a full story. You always get this. So they're in Capernaum, they're visiting Peter and his mother-in-law, and then he's healing this and he's doing that, and then he, in the middle of the night, just disappears to go pray, and they all go searching for him, and then they go somewhere else. I mean, that's the gospel in a nutshell today. But this gospel, there's a power in it because of that word prayer. You and I pray, and it's like we give Jesus our laundry list. Okay, God, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I want you to heal that person, I want you to give me this, I want you to give me that. All of this big laundry list that we have. And then we get pretty ticked off at God, and you know, if he had a mother-in-law, we'd heal her because he didn't give us what we wanted. But yet, that's not what prayer is. That's what we think prayer is. That's a form of prayer, prayer of petition. But what Peter's mother-in-law exhibits is a prayer of thanksgiving. She's healed of an illness and gets up and serves table. But she's serving, she's being hospitable. She's welcoming Jesus into her home, and she's doing what she can do best, and that is feed him. Be a person that says you're welcome here all the time. I've led about 19 trips over to the Holy Land, and I've watched as a church went up over the site of the house of Peter's mother-in-law, which is right across maybe a street half the size of the pew. There's the synagogue, and there's the house right there. And you see the remains of the house, which was an early Christian church, dating from the late double numbers to the early hundreds. Demolished, but now a pretty modern church is over with a glass floor, so that in some way there's a connection with that early church that you can see through and into. It's a place of holiness. It's a place where people gather, yes, in pilgrimage, but they gather to be in conversation. See, prayer is conversation, and it doesn't begin with us. It begins with God. The first words that God says to humankind are what? You're very good. And prayer is our response to that. And that response is very simple. Thank you. Thank you for making me very good. Thank you for making me in your divine image and likeness. Thank you for your love, which is what we heard in that psalm. That sequence hymn, that psalm. God's love is everlasting and is loyal. Is loyal. Our love, not so loyal sometimes. You know, it depends on how I feel about you today. It depends on how you ticked me off. It depends on, were you gracious enough? It depends on, but that's not what God's love is about, depending on. Prayer is our ability to sit still and be with the Lord. That's what the psalmist says. Be still and know that I am God. There was a great Christian humanist back in the early to mid-1500s, Erasmus. And he wrote this wonderful commentary on the very first chapter of John's Gospel, one of my favorites. And in it, he says, you know, we translate that word logos as word, but really we get the word dialogos, dialogue, word back and forth, from that. And I'd rather translate that, he says, as in the beginning was the conversation. And the conversation was with God, And the conversation was God, and the conversation became flesh. So that you and I can have that conversation with that Word made flesh, Jesus, who teaches us how to pray. And that prayer is like what he does here in this gospel. When he's tired of all the healing and tired of all the preaching, in the middle of the night, when no one is around to bug him, he goes off to a secluded place to what? Pray. To be in relationship and in conversation with God. So what? He can come out of that place and do more. What prayer is supposed to be for you and I is our ability to be enough with God. That's why we gather Sunday after Sunday, to get the energy, to get the spirituality, to get the strength to go out and do more in God's name. I think back, oh God, too many years ago, about 7 years ago. I was ordained 45 years ago. It was about 2 years before my ordination. And my Meme Podvin was in the hospital. And I was home and I visited her. And her knee was very bad. And it was like this. And she was going to have an operation, which she was very nervous about. And so she says to me, Denis, viens sit. Come here. Pray over my leg. Meme. You're going to be a priest? You're going to know how to do this. Pray over my leg. I'm going to be healed. Okay, yes, Meme. When Meme asked, you did. And so I said a prayer with her. And I have to tell you, I felt like warmth that I didn't feel when we started. And I looked at her face at the end of the prayer. She had tears coming down. And she said, now I'll be better. It was that teaching moment for me from Meme as to what prayer is about. It's about loving the other. It's about caring for the other in hospitality and in kindness and love, not just because she's my grandmother, but because she's another person made in the image and likeness of God who is hurting and needs care. And the prayer that Jesus talks about to us today is about caring for the other. Don't you know what I'm supposed to do? I have to go out and preach the message. I have to leave this place, Capernaum. I have to leave it. And I have to go and make the message known. And what is that message? The good news of Jesus Christ. What is that message? We are all loved. We are all made in the image and likeness of God. We are all forgiven. We are all healed. We are all very good. And the challenge for us is to see that very goodness in those that we have a hard time with. In those that we have a hard time forgiving, to forgive them. Oh, that prayer that we have to say at every service, the Our Father, drives me crazy. Forgive us as we forgive those. Oh, those are damning words. See, we take these prayers so routine. But we've got to listen with our hearts to what we're praying. Forgive me. Forgive us as we forgive. That's a challenge. Been there, done that. Still have a hard time with it. It's to love as I am loved. To heal as I am healed. To show mercy. And to be humble in that. See, when Jesus calls us to prayer and shows us by his example what that prayer means, it means when we walk out those doors today, after this hour of prayer, of conversation with God, we have to make a difference out there. St. Francis of Assisi used to say, the only gospel some people may ever read is your life. How's your gospel doing? People will judge us and the good news of Jesus by how we treat each other and others. For those that we have a hard time seeing goodness in, we got to look hard sometimes. And so my prayer always when I have that hard time is, okay, Lord, I know they're made in your image and likeness. I know you love them as much as you love me. I know that you forgive them as much as you've forgiven me. Help me see with your eyes, because right now I'm pretty blind. And I have to tell you, every now and then the glimpse of that goodness of God comes out in that person that I've had a hard time with. Because God knows they probably had a hard time with me. And so my prayer, my conversation with God, my being still with the Lord and understanding him and listening to the Lord is one of being open to the goodness that may come my way. Open to the reality of how God may use me today in ways that I don't expect or didn't even know he used me in that way. Because I did a kind gesture to someone, or because I might have said a hello, or I might have said to someone in the grocery line, you go in front of me, you've only got a few things. Anything like that can be a preaching of the gospel. Or if someone asks you, would you pray for my mother, she's not feeling well, or would you pray for my spouse because there's a sickness, or I just got devastating news, I'm losing my job. Take a moment, at that moment, and pray with them for what they've asked you to pray for. Oh, but people might see me praying in public, and I don't know if I want to do that. Get over it. That's what Jesus would say, get over it. Be a witness at that moment to the love and the care, to that what that person needs then. Then maybe when we do go out those doors, that world out there which is so filled with hostility might, by one little random act of kindness, bumper sticker, I know, make a difference. So, this is your week to be deeper in prayer, to make a difference outside those doors by praying for someone else. So right now I'll be my meme for you. Get out there and pray on everybody that needs to be prayed for. Amen? Amen. Have a good day.